Israelite Brotherhood, Israelite Brotherhood. Look, I'm finna try to shed a little history on this New Testament, cause a lot of brothers and sisters, Hebrew brothers and sisters, think that the exile history, that means the people from Babylon that was captured during the Babylonian captivity, took into Babylon and came back home, and people think that those were the New Testament people. Those are the only people that could have been the New Testament people. So we're going to look into this a little bit, because we know if you read the book of Ezra, if you read the book of Nehemiah, if you read the book of Haggai, if you read the book of Zechariah, and if you read the book of Malachi, I ain't got them all in the exact order, but from 538 BC, from when the Persians defeated the Babylonians, they allowed the exiles that was taken to Babylon to come back home. You see what I'm saying? They allowed them to come back home. Okay, if you read their books, it'll tell you that they sinned so bad, You know what I'm saying? Especially in the book of Nehemiah. Oh man, in the book of Ezra, the prophet Ezra, he tell you how, the people was mixing, and how, they didn't want to build a temple. And then he also explained how a whole bunch of other nations and peoples were set in our land during that time. Now we got to remember that the exiles from Babylon that was captured and taken to Babylon was like less than 1%, a tenth. And prophet Isaiah had already made a prophecy about them. You see what I'm saying? In 735 BC, the prophet Isaiah laid out our whole captivity. It's basically when we was put to sleep because we wouldn't come up off that Egyptian worship. I hope that I can get that in too, because this phone don't record long. All right, let me go to Isaiah chapter 6, and then we'll get an understanding of the exiles. I'm going to start around about chapter 6, verse 12, be kind of like when it started, because he asked the creator how long. Then said I, Elohim, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without men, and the land be utterly destroyed. Okay, that happened in the book of Jeremiah in 588 BC. When we said we wasn't going to do the covenant, we was completely driven off the land, and that 1%, that tenth, was taken to Babylon. If you look at Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 2, you will see that the whole city was empty. Now, this is after the prophet Isaiah had gave his prophecy, saying what was going to happen. Let me look at this real quick. All right, chapter 44. This phone don't have long. All praise be Almighty God. All right, this is chapter 44. We was in Egypt. We had got chased off the land. And this said the Elohim of hosts, the Yah of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have done and brought upon Jerusalem. And behold, all the cities of Judah are a desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. You was either in Babylon, or you was the 99% that had went into Africa. We had said that we was going to go back into Egypt to worship their religion. We was basically tricked out the covenant. The Egyptians had been planted that Egyptian religion stuff on us. We had got rid of it a few times, and then we was back on it. King Josiah got rid of it, and when the Egyptians killed him, we got back on it and went into Africa, and that's when the Babylonians took that tenth to Egypt, to Babylon, and we went into Egypt. All right, chapter 6. All right. Then said I, Elohim, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabiting, and the houses without men, and the land utterly desolate. That happened in the book of Jeremiah. And then in the Elohim have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the middle of the land. All right, that those that was removed far away was that tenth, and those that did the forsaking in the land is us that went into Africa to worship the Queen of Heaven. I'm always talking about that in all the videos. Okay, but yet and it shall be a tenth, and it shall return. That tenth return from Babylon. You see, people be saying the 10 lost tribes. That's dealing with the Assyrian Empire. That would be dealing with more than the tenth. But then we know that didn't go down as history try to portray. Because you got Jewish history and Hebrew Israelite history. Jewish history gonna be all the myths, all the myths. You know what I'm saying? The 10 lost tribes and the Hebrews ran into Africa in 70 AD. All those are myths. Okay, but yet and it shall be a tenth, and it shall return and shall be eaten as a teal tree and as a oak, in whose substance in is as in them when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. All right, that was talking about the ones that come back from Babylon. See, when them Hebrews come back from Babylon after we was driven into Africa, that's gonna be the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and as I was showing, in Ezra chapter 4, how a lot of people was put in our land. You know what I'm saying? See, when the people come back from Babylon, they can only live in Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? And in the cities of Judah. And they took a toll to see how many would go live in Jerusalem to try to repair the temple. And they had such a hard time. Man, it was millions of other peoples there. They was that tenth. And they started seeing it so bad. But these are some more people that was placed in our land. You know, the the uh the the Danites, the Phishpherites, the Tarpites, the Pharisees, the Archivites, the Babylonians, the Shushionites, the Devites, and the Elamites. You know what I'm saying? Not counting the people that was placed in our land in 722 BC. See, the Sephardims was placed in our land in 722 BC. In the Sephardim, it's the Hebrew word for the Sephardi groups. If you go to 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 24. 17, chapter 17, 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 24. And you'll see that some more people was placed in our land. And we were slipping on the Egyptian religion. And them people started doing our heritage. See? And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuddar and from Abel and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possess a Samaria. Okay. It was all kind of people living in our land. All kind of people living in our land. And if you read Ezra 9, let me see, Ezra 9. That's going to be Nehemiah chapter, let's see. That's going to be Ezra 9. Ezra 9, you're going to see that the people, that tenth, that prophet Isaiah said that was going to be eaten alive and drop off dead like some leaves were these peoples right here, these Hebrews that was mixing with these peoples that was still in our land. Like I said, it was a whole bunch of different nations. Man, it was about 15, 25 different nations that had moved into the promised land when we went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah, and our land was empty for 50 years from 588 BC to 538 BC. 50 years our land was empty, and all the people moved in, and the exiles didn't stand a chance because they started doing just like them folks did. Now when these things, this is Ezra 9. Now when all these things were done, the princes said unto me, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according unto the abomination of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. See what I'm saying? So the exiles had to be cut off. And if you read the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, they tell a sad story. Those folks was doomed, and that's what brought the Greeks in. They totally destroyed them. They got knocked off in a 98-year span. The book of Malachi gonna be the last book. See what I'm saying? The book of Malachi around about 438 BC, and the Greeks come in 98 years later, and then Jewish history start. Jewish history gonna be the people from Second Kings, chapter 17, verse 24. Them Sephardims that I showed you, and them other peoples that moved in. Those gonna be the oldest Jews that was practicing our heritage. Okay, they represent the New Testament people because the 99% was in Africa. See, that's why when Jesus was born and he went to Egypt, he didn't have no idea to look for the Hebrews that had broke the covenant in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18. That was written 588 years before he was born, and them books was around. The Tanakh was around because the Jews had translated the history. You see, they had took over the temple. You know what I'm saying? We had some priests' sons. I'm gonna post that history, and then they took over the temple, and Nehemiah ran them out. But you know, after so long, the people had started mixing a little bit with them folks that they had to be killed off, and that's why the Greeks came in and did it quietly. You see what I'm saying? And that's why come when Jesus was born and Jesus went to Egypt, Jesus would have seen uh, uh, Pharaoh's statues of the Ptolemies and all those white Egyptians that we see today. That why the white folks claim Egypt is because they took Egypt over in 332 BC, ran the black folks away. You see what I'm saying? And then by the time Jesus went there, because the Romans took it over in 20 BC, and by the time Jesus went there, he wouldn't have seen nothing but white people. That's all he would have known. It wasn't no Hebrews in the land. It wasn't no Hebrews in the New Testament. It's a 500-year difference between the New Testament and the Tanakh. The New Testament was written around about 100 AD. You know, that's when them Babylonian scribes, the people that was placed in our land in Samaria in 722 BC, start writing books. You see what I'm saying? And those are the books that they wrote. You know, those people that was placed in our land in 722 BC, the Sephardims, the Sephardi Jews are responsible for Babylonian history. You see what I'm saying? So that's why come when this Jesus fella was born, Yawashi, Yahshua, whatever y'all want to call him, it was a bunch of them during that time. It was Jesus Anath, Jesus being Stock, Jesus being Gamel, Jesus being Saprat, Jesus being Jesus being Stoddard. You know, he even wrote in the Talmud, you know, where them Jews combined all their history and made that one. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I come in the New Testament, they God come in the light. You see what I'm saying? Shining light. Jesus, Paul experienced them lights. You see what I'm saying? That's supposed to have led him to do the ministry and stuff. Well, in the Tanakh, man, the Creator always came in the darkness. You know what I'm saying? And dwelled in the darkness. You know, the whole everything was created from dark, and then it come into light. And we was with the original darkness, whereas this New Testament stuff is with the light. And the light can be associated with Lucifer. You know what I'm saying? See, Canaan had some kids too. Cain. Cain had some kids. Cain had this disease called Tazarac put on him that took away his pigmentation, that made him recognizable. You know, it was a sign on him that he was a killer and a liar, because he told that first lie, saying that he didn't know what happened to his brother after he killed him, Abel. You see what I'm saying? So he had some descendants. That's gonna be them Nephilims and them Raphalims that's in the scriptures that them Amorites mix with. You see, and that them Canaanites mix with. You see what I'm saying? Well, Jesus ministered to them type folks, all them folks that we didn't drive out the promised land like we were supposed to. You know what I'm saying? Them people was still there when we went into Africa, and when them exiles was taking those, that tenth that was taken to Babylon. And then when they come back home, you know what I'm saying? All them people was still there. And then them people that had the covenant. See, we couldn't have two covenants. You know, the Creator told us in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31, that He will give us a covenant not like unto the one that we had got from Egypt when we came out, the one that we broke and couldn't hold on to. You see, after these curses and after these tribulations that we're going through, you know, we'll have a new covenant and we'll know not to do none of that stuff. Well, them exiles that come from Babylon was under that old covenant. You see what I'm saying? Because they had went to Babylon like the Creator had said during the Babylonian captivity, and they was freed, and then they came back home. You see what I'm saying? But they sinned so bad that that's what made the Greeks come in. And then you got the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. You know, he covered those exiles, and their history end at 430 BC. And 98 years later, the Greeks come in because of the sin that, you know, the exiles did. You know, it couldn't be no two covenants. The one uh, uh, of the covenant breakers who had to go through the curses, and then one that was still up under the law that Moses gave us, which would have been the exiles, because they obeyed the Creator and went on to Babylon and came back home. Well, they had to be destroyed because, you know, they started mixing and started falling off. And we had a recorded history. And we also can prove that we the Hebrews, because the Queen of Heaven worshippers from the book of Jeremiah, our last act, they never came out of Africa to be reunited with them when the Persians destroyed the Babylonian Empire. The Persians even, you know, the Creator was so gracious, he let the Persians even take Egypt over. And that would have allowed us to come back out of Egypt to be reunited with the exiles, that tenth that come back from Babylon, and we would have still been up under the old covenant. But since we didn't come back up out of Africa to be reunited with them, you know, we are the last, because they was cut off because of their sins. And if you read them books, Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, you will see that, you know, it was over. You know, and then I think I could turn to the book of Malachi, and he'll tell you that they still up under the covenant that the Creator gave them. And let me see the book. Shalom, Hebrews, just the Israelite Brotherhood. I'm Israel ben Israel, doing the history for the Israelite Brotherhood. See, all right, just the prophet Haggai, 520 BC, the return from Babylon. And he said, and now be strong, O Zerubbabel, said the Elohim, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Jodish, the high priest, and be strong, all ye people of the land, said the Elohim, and work, for I am with you, said the Elohim of hosts, according to the word that I covenant with you when you come out of Egypt. So my spirit remaineth among you. Fear ye not. See, but they started sinning so bad. They started sinning so bad that what made the Greeks come in. You know, if you read the book, man, of Malachi, the last book, he'll tell you it was over. The priesthood, everything was over, because they had even let the Edomites and the other folks set up in the temple. You know, Nehemiah had to chase them out of there. It was over with for them. You know, our heritage had to be cut off because we had broke the covenant, the majority, the 99%, so that the Jesus character is not going to be no Hebrew, because throughout our whole Hebrew history, we never had no understanding of no God Son or no Creator having no miraculous Son coming to save us out of no situation. That's a story that was created 500 years after the Tanakh closed, after the book of Malachi. When that closed, then around about 100 AD, about 500 years, about 187,000 days had passed by, and then they come with this God Son stuff